You're listening to the Thunder Underground Podcast, episode 49. Happy St. Patrick's Day if you're listening the day this dropped. If you're listening in the future, well, hope your St. Patrick's Day was great. I don't know what people do besides drink or whatever, but, you know, happy St. Patty's to you.
That's right. They drink green beer.
Yeah. As always, I'm Trent, and this, of course, is Jason.
That's right, I'm Jason. And by the way, that fucking green beer, all that is beer with green food coloring, and they jack it up $2 more.
What,
So,
you're saying there's not actually a green brew coming out of...
I hate to dispel the myth, but, you know, someone's got to tell the truth.
Well, this episode is dropping on St. Patrick's Day. Special edition. We figured since it's St. Patrick's Day, we need to drop this Lenny Lashley episode.
Definitely. Very excited for this one.
We did this a few weeks, it's been about almost 3 weeks ago now, and we held on to it so we could put it out this week, and we're excited about it. Both big fans of the Street Dogs. We're both newer fans now of Darkbuster.
Yes.
And, of course, Lenny Lashley's Gang of One and all that stuff. We'll get into that. He'll get into that here in a bit. And, of course, before we do all that, we like to play music for you. We like to play independent music. If you've got a band that you want us to play or want us to check out, thethunderunderground@gmail.com, or shoot us an email on Facebook. Either one works. This band we're going to play is called Madewell. They're out of Tulsa, Oklahoma. And this song is called Nothing.
One that won't require much. Don't kick and scream and don't cause a scene. Please just don't make a fuss. You've had your shot and you blew the call. Now all that's left to do is fall. Blow into your shadow dream. Know what will come, you won't be deceived. You won't be missing. I can live my life in bliss. I know what I must do. Everyone around will see you hanging from the highest tree. You'll be the one that's blue. There's nothing anyone can do. No deity to absolve you. No punishment for all your sin. You won't be coming back again.
Nothing by Madewell. Once again, they're out of Tulsa, Oklahoma. In typical punk fashion, that's short to the point. It's got a cool hook to it. The vocals are unique. You know, he even gets into a little dirty stuff there halfway through with his vocals as well, which I thought was cool. Just all around a cool track, and it's cool to hear stuff like this in Tulsa. I know it's out there, but personally I just haven't found it. Because I don't search for it, I guess. That's the problem. But I do love what I've heard from Madewell, all the stuff I've heard, so I'm glad we got to play this. What do you think?
Oh, I love it. It's raw, it's got bounce, it's got a cool guitar line that's going along with, sometimes it goes along with the melody, sometimes it goes along with the riff. It's a signature punk in true fashion. Great way to kick off our punk rock episode of the podcast. And I think we met Nate from Madewell, didn't we?
Yeah, we did.
At a show not too long ago. So, you know, great Tulsa stuff. Get into it. Like you said, you know, we're just now kind of getting into the punk stuff in Tulsa, and we admittedly are new at it. You know, and if you guys have any suggestions, want to throw us some tunes our way, you know, definitely do so. But yeah, Madewell, there you go. It was great to play it, and everybody needs to go check them out.
Yeah, they're on Reverb Nation. Search for Madewell. They've got several songs up there. They're on Facebook. Check them out.
That's right.
Well, like we said, this is a special punk episode, and before we get into the Lenny Lashley interview, we just wanted to talk about punk for a while.
Yeah.
Talk about what stuff we're into, what stuff we were into at a young age, all that great stuff. And I don't know where to begin. I could say where to begin. I could say.
Yeah, that's what. Well, go ahead. I had questions for you, but.
Well, I was just going to say that whoever they are, say that punk rock has gone away, but I don't believe a word they say.
That's right.
You know, I just wanted to quote that since this is a Street Dogs themed episode.
Because we all need a little punk rock and roll.
Yeah. Lyrically, that whole song is the perfect summation of punk rock.
It is for sure.
Well,
so here's what I want to ask you. What was your first like time you saw it, heard it, and you know what did it plant something inside you, or I mean, did you just like and then get into it later? Well, as far back as you can remember, what was your first kind of learnings of punk rock?
Well, I think most everything I saw or heard at an early age was the typical Sex Pistols or Clash, that kind of thing. And I didn't dislike it. I just didn't latch onto it, because we were metal dudes.
Yeah.
Glam rock dudes and then thrash metal dudes and then all that stuff, right? So I didn't really go that way yet. But the first thing, I thought about this earlier because I'm like, what was the first thing that I actually latched onto? And I think it was whenever I was sitting around thinking, I need to fill out the rest of this order for BMG to get a few more CDs. What do I want?
It's always the fucking music clubs, isn't it?
Yeah. And I saw the Ramones' greatest hits.
Yeah.
And I thought, I need to get this. It's got like 28 songs on it.
Yeah, exactly. Ramones Mania.
Yeah, that's what it was.
Ramones Mania, and then you tape your penny
Yeah.
to the card and sent the motherfucker off.
Yeah. I got Ramones Mania, and I think that's the first thing that I had purchased. Purchased it through BMG, but what I mean.
Yeah.
And I got that and absolutely loved it. And from there, it was really that and then Social Distortion that I heard around then.
Okay.
Those were the only two things that I really latched onto at an early point.
Yeah.
And then more stuff came later. But I think that's where it began for me, at least.
Yeah.
I mean, I knew of other stuff, but I just didn't really dig, outside of hearing it when friends would play it or, randomly in other places.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
But
what about you?
Well, I think for me, it all started with the Ramones. I remember, having MTV, out here. We're out here where I live, where I grew up, not far from you, and we were kind of slow to get cable, in the 80s. So my dad got one of those gigantic satellite dishes, right?
Oh, yeah.
And so me and my brother were just enamored that we finally got MTV. And, I mean, I didn't know they were punk. I mean, I didn't know punk from anything. I was just a kid. It was all rock and roll to me. It could have been punk or metal or whatever. All I know is I saw, four long-haired guys in leather jackets singing about Pet Sematary and I Want to Be Sedated. Those are like the first two videos from them I remember seeing, and I just dug it. It was catchy. It was short. And it rocked at the same time. I really think that's what, when I look back on it, when I go over everything that I've listened to over the last almost 40 years that I've been alive, I think that's what implanted in me my love for just short, straight, basic, just streamlined stuff. Because that's the Ramones. They were catchy, but it was like economical and loud and punchy. And that was my first learnings of it. And of course, kind of like you said, but then you kind of see the Sex Pistols and the typical spiky hair, safety pin stuff. But I didn't really latch onto that as much as, I don't know, the Ramones made an impact on me pretty early as a kid.
Well, what was it not until later that you got into other stuff? Like
Yeah,
when
I
Rancid
mean,
hit and that kind of thing?
Well,
or was it?
I think it was around that time, maybe a little before. It was, like you said, we'd gone on to be metal kids, and we loved our hair metal and all that stuff. But in, 10th, 11th, 12th grade, I just kind of, I was in a period, that was a period where everything that we liked was getting pushed by the wayside for grunge and alternative. So I went back into what a lot of the metal guys, their influences, and I got into a big classic rock thing. And then a good friend of both of ours growing up, David Thompson, he was getting real big into punk, traditional punk. I mean, Dave, if you're out there, you're the whole reason that I like any kind of punk rock at all. And it carries to this day. It all starts with you, Dave, if you're out there. And I know you are, actually.
Yeah, I remember him, telling me to listen to the Germs and the UK subs.
He
and
was
that kind
big
of
on the Germs, big on the Germs.
And I never did.
Yeah.
I did later on, years later.
Yeah, it was...
back then I'm like, no, I'm listening to Anthrax, dude.
Yeah.
And the cool thing about him was that he was into all the thrash metal and stuff, too, so he wasn't like one of those judgmental dudes.
Oh, no, he was totally cool with it, except for one time we were driving around and I had Ugly Kid Joe, and I don't think he was too hip to that, but that's okay. Anyways, and I remember, it's funny you mentioned the Germs. He loved the Germs, and he was into, he had the spiky hair and the ripped up stuff and the clothespins, and he was living it, and that's what he loved. And he was unabashed about it, and that's what I admired so much. And, he went to all the house shows and house parties with all the underground, and he had a shirt on. He had a Rancid shirt on before they really, really blew up huge, and so he turned me on to Rancid. He turned me on, but I think the first thing that he turned me on to that really stuck with me was the Misfits, because it had that kind of dark thing that, metal, metalheads love, but it was punk. And I loved those recordings. They were like these shitty recordings, but they were so vibey, and they just set a tone, and it really colorful. And it was less about production and more about just scaring the shit out of you and making you feel something. Go listen to Mommy, Can I Go Out and Kill Tonight? I mean, you'll just scare the shit out of you. And I think from then on, I was like, okay, I'm gonna, and then, and that's when I was like, oh, well, the Ramones are a punk band. I remember them from when I was little. Let's get into them. Let's get into this. Let's get into that. And it just opened up a whole thing. And that's one thing I loved about the 90s was, getting all these great records from Rancid and Social Distortion. That was another band. We both love Social Distortion. We're nuts about Social Distortion. And it just kind of, from then, it was all just right there. You could check it all out. And there's just, I don't know, man, there's just so much cool stuff,
Yeah. Well, the Misfits, you mentioned, that was one that most anybody that was into metal knew because of Last Caress, because of Metallica.
Last Caress,
Last Caress, Green Hell, and then you knew, oh, Danzig used to be in that band because you like Danzig if you're into metal,
That's right.
And I kind of, I checked it out at that point. I think I borrowed something from somebody. It might have been Dave. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
But, and I listened to it. Now, I didn't latch onto it like you did at that point. I was just like, because it was so low quality sounding, I was like, well, this is cool, but I just, it wasn't until years later that I'm like, okay, this is badass.
Yeah.
I get it.
Oh, dude, I mean, I hate to toot my own horn. I don't want to sound like a douche, but I got it right away. I was like, it was just balls out, just mean, sloppy, fucking, we don't care. We just want to make people feel something. And I fell in love with it. I listened to that. It was, I think it was the Misfits, some compilation, and he just made me a tape of it. I don't even know. Later on, I found out what it was called, but I wore that tape out, man. I wore it out. I think my parents thought I was possessed or something.
Well, as I mentioned, we're both, metal kids still to this day, but it's like, so I assume that if someone who's a diehard punk fan's listening to this, they're going to scream we're skipping over tons of stuff. But,
oh, yeah.
I admittedly, my punk knowledge even to this day is just like a little below the surface,
Exactly.
I didn't really ever get super deep into it, and I still love a lot of stuff. And I know a lot of stuff about the bands that I really love, but there's tons of bands out there that, we should be listening to, like Fear or something that I've only heard a little bit of in my life on occasion.
Yeah.
But,
and, it's just like we said a little bit ago, we're admittedly, there's some stuff we don't know about, and, let us know. And there's nothing wrong with saying, well, I'm into this, but there's probably a lot of stuff I could listen to.
Yeah.
But we like what we like. There's a lot of stuff. Black Flag is such a iconic name when it comes to punk, and I never really got hardcore into them. Yeah. Henry Rollins, was my kind of gateway back into them. And which, by the way, if you want a good album, go get the West Memphis 3 benefit record. God, what's it called? That first song. Oh God, I'll think about it. Keep going on something else.
Yeah, that's killing me now too. But yeah, the whole thing is remakes of Black Flag songs with, guest vocalists.
Yep.
But so yeah, all that. Punk had its heyday in the
Rise Above. There it is.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Punk had its heyday, its beginnings in the mid-late 70s and in the early 80s.
Yeah.
And then kind of went away in mainstream at least, and then came back in the 90s with Rancid and Green Day, and to a lesser extent like Bad Religion. Yeah. And there was all those offshoot bands like Goldfinger and whoever.
Oh, yeah. Well, Bad Religion, they were kind of there from the 80s.
Yeah, I mean, they had been around, but they didn't really have commercial success.
True, yeah.
To a mainstream audience until the 90s. But, so let's just get this out of the way. What's your thoughts? I know you like Green Day.
Yes, I do. I love Green Day, and I don't give a fuck what anyone thinks. I've got a big middle finger for you.
Right. I liked Green Day in a past tense.
Yeah.
Like, I can still hear stuff now and like it, but I heard so much of their stuff over the past 15 years that just pisses me off. Mm-hmm. Like anything that is slow by them.
True.
Good Riddance, When September Ends. I don't know. Every single song I ever hear just pisses me off. It just sounds whiny and stupid. Yeah. I can't stand it.
Oh, no, I will completely agree with you there.
But when that first album came out, when Dookie, I guess it was their second album, but their first major label album came out, I think I won it. It's one of those Zuna 4.5 things or something. And I dug it. It was cool. And the one after that, I think I liked a little, but then it just kind of faded for me.
Okay.
Whereas bands like Rancid, I love them now as much as I loved them then.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, of course, and see, people, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but it seemed like, punk purists wrote Dookie off or wrote Green Day off because, it was 1994 or whatever. But it doesn't fucking matter. That's just a great punk record. Yeah. No matter how you slice it. It doesn't matter if it came out in 79 or 94. That is a great punk record, and you just can't argue that, The
punk purists are going to write it off because it was super massive.
Yeah, exactly. And then I admit I checked out on Green Day. I didn't like that geek stink breath or whatever, and Good Riddance was stupid.
I kind of like
Walking Contradiction was cool.
Brain Stew, their AC/DC ripoff, was all right.
Yeah. And when they put out the Warning record, it was acoustic, kind of an acoustic thing. It was a different avenue for a punk band, and I thought there were some cool songs on it. And I even liked the big shit. American Idiot or whatever. Yeah. That record. It was cool. It had a lot of cool songs, and that's why I just And if they're out, there's a big band that's playing guitars and shit instead of somebody that's at a laptop. So to me, that's cool. But at the same time, I agree, a lot of their slow stuff, I just, I got to turn it.
On the flip side, there's a band from that era that I like that I know you don't.
Yes.
Which is The Offspring.
Yeah, I know. I knew exactly, yeah.
And it was the same way. I really liked the first album, and then I kind of checked out, and then now I'm back on the Offspring train, I guess, for some reason.
Yeah.
Like, listening to older stuff and the last couple albums, they've got some questionable stuff on their last couple albums, just real borderline pop, but
Yeah.
it's still,
Oh, yeah.
there's still a lot of the typical just Offspring rock, and I just like the fact that he was never that great of a singer, didn't have much of a range, but it just always sounded cool to me. But that's about all I've got on that.
Yeah.
I mean, I like him. I'm not a massive fan.
Well,
But
that can bring us, that was like 3 big punk bands that came out at that time. And the one that we both loved and still love today is Rancid.
right.
Well, we got to get into them.
Yeah. And we talked about them on an episode a while back because we had the opportunity to see them live recently.
Yeah.
And we'd seen them live at least, I think I'd seen them twice before, and you've seen them maybe 3 times? Or am I forgetting
I've
that
seen
guy?
it twice.
Okay.
It was twice.
It's probably the same then.
Yeah.
But that was way back. And we saw them this past September at Riot Fest in Chicago.
Yeah.
And they played And Out Come the Wolves in its entirety,
Yeah.
which is pretty amazing.
Yeah, it was very amazing.
Because, I mean, that kind of like you said with other albums, that's one of those albums that, I mean, that thing's 21 years old now.
Mm-hmm.
And you could easily, doesn't matter if you're a punk purist or what, I mean, that's got to be listed as one of the greatest albums ever, as far as punk music goes,
Definitely. I mean, there's just the songs. You can put that album on and not skip through anything. Well, any Rancid you don't have to skip through, but I mean, you know what I mean. It's just one of those. It's just iconic,
Yeah.
hands down.
Well, and like you said, everything that they've ever done is quality.
Yeah.
They don't
Yeah, I mean,
release subpar crap,
and they've got this just like I like that they've got kind of that little ska influence, but not too much. They've got that real honest, ska thing, like the Interrupters are doing now, which they're great. But like not stupid, cheesy 90s teen movie ska, like Real Big Fish or something.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's just, they've got kind of a bright kind of sound, and, they're so catchy, and, I think that, they just work very well together. And, I mean, any record, Indestructible or, Life Won't Wait. God, that's a great fucking record. I mean, it's just, Rancid is just one of my favorites.
But the cool thing about them is that they've got all these little offshoots that they've had going on for years.
Yeah.
Like the Transplants.
Yeah.
And Lars's, I can't remember what his
Lars
thing's.
Fredrickson and the Bastards.
Yeah.
Isn't it? Yeah.
And all this stuff's cool. And then you've got, in a totally different realm, you've got Tim Timebomb.
Yeah, that's great stuff.
Yeah. And this is stuff, I don't know how long he's been doing it, but at least he's been putting out music the last few years with it. And you go look this guy up on Spotify or iTunes or something, there's like 100-some tracks. And, half of them are covers, half of them are originals. He's got Rancid songs on there. They're all stripped down to just either him and an acoustic or, sometimes it's full band. But
it's just like a different arrangement.
Yeah. It's just a real stripped down, laid back, type version.
Yeah. And that reminds me his solo album, Tim Armstrong, his solo album, A Poet's Life, is just one of my favorite records. It's like this just mellow, kind of reggae-ish kind of thing. I don't know. It's just great. I think he's got the Agrolites with him.
Oh, yeah.
It's just an amazing record.
Well, and in that same vein, that reminded me of Mike Ness and his solo work.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
You wouldn't call this punk at all, but
no, it's more roots music, Americana, if you ask me.
But since it's him,
yeah, exactly.
we can throw it out there.
And it's got that edge to it.
Like Cheating at Solitaire, and what was the other one called that had the covers?
Under the Influence.
Yeah, Under the Influence.
All, yeah.
And
I mean, he fucking did a song with Springsteen. Misery Loves Company. That's one of the best songs ever written of all time.
And you remember Springsteen brought him on stage a couple years ago.
Yes, right? Yeah, that's on YouTube. Go look that up.
Yeah.
They did Bad Luck, I think. And then we can just go right into Social Distortion on that. I mean,
Tim Timebomb does a version of Bad Luck that's badass.
That's right. Tim Timebomb also does a kick-ass version of Los Angeles is Burning by Bad Religion, which is a great song in and of itself. But then Tim Timebomb does a completely awesome, different version of it. I mean, this is what we're talking about, people. It just goes everywhere.
Right? But yeah, Social Distortion, just as another one. You could say just like Rancid or something where there's really no missteps, in my opinion.
No, there's none.
And even the later later in that early period was White Light, White Heat, White Trash, which was at 94, 95.
Yeah.
And I just absolutely love that. That's the album that, I liked them before that.
Yeah.
But that's the album that, like, solidified it for me, and I went back and just, like,
really
got everything.
Because you always heard Ball and Chain on the radio.
Yeah.
And then, because the Edge would always play it, and, that's a great song. And then they come out with, White Light, White Heat, White Trash, and it just blew it open for us. We were just instant fans. It was just like, it was edgy and hard, but it had like great songs. And I mean, it just, I don't know. I think, from our backgrounds and the blue collar thing that we come from, and just, what we like, it just hit us, dude.
Yeah. And they're just one of those bands that still to this day, you see them live. It's great every time.
Oh, yeah.
They still put out good music. I mean, it's been a few years, but...
Yeah, you're like, what are they going to do next? I mean, what can they do? Because every album is like just a fucking masterpiece.
Right.
And then they come out with something better. Everything's memorable as hell.
Yeah.
Like California Hustle and Flow or Bakersfield.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like, and you got to think, in a way, I guess Social Distortion have almost kind of moved into, like I've said before, kind of a rootsier thing. Like they've had like Lucero open up for them and stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, but they still have that, they still have that punk rock thing going on for sure.
And that's another thing I wanted to bring up that just reminded me, is that punk is kind of cool because it's just like metal, where there's like 48 million different genres.
Yeah.
And you got people, you could have 10 different people that like punk or metal, and they all like something, a different style.
Yeah.
And it's like, and they hate the other style,
Yeah.
It's like when you think of punk, there's all these, there's like the stuff like, the Dead Milkmen or something, which is punk, but it's like, kind of like that, it's just funny,
Yeah, exactly.
Where all the lyrics are, kind of jokey and stuff. And then you've got like the extreme stuff, where it's just in your face and there's like, no catchiness to it at all,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and then you could like, hardcore, which is, it's an offshoot, I think.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that. Like, where does punk end and hardcore begin?
I don't know. I mean, you've got
because Agnostic Front,
Madewell.
I see them a lot listed.
Sick of it all.
Like I see Agnostic Front listed a lot as a punk band.
Yeah.
But I always just thought they were a hardcore band.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Because you wouldn't really consider Hatebreed punk at all.
No, you wouldn't.
But they're hardcore.
Yeah, they are.
But the earlier ones, I guess, like Madball and Agnostic Front, kind of cross that line a little.
Yeah, definitely.
And that's another band that, like, admittedly, I always knew who they were just because of their name, but I never really listened to them, Agnostic Front, until, like, the past year or two, whenever Josta kept bringing them up on his podcast. So I checked it out, and I'm like, holy crap,
Yeah, it was badass, wasn't it? Yeah,
this is a great band, and I've missed them for 25 years or however long I've been listening to this stuff,
Damn you.
And another one that you see listed there sometimes but isn't is Suicidal Tendencies.
Yes.
And that's because they kind of cross the line on a lot of things, know?
Yeah, I know. They straddle a lot of shit.
And that's one band that I've loved since, the same thing, since 90, 91 probably.
Yeah.
But I don't consider them punk. But if they are, then they're at the top of my list,
There you go. There you go.
Well, you've got all these other bands like, say, The Damned.
Yeah.
That is another band I kind of missed the boat on, but recently listened to more. And we got to see them.
Yeah, we saw them at Riot Fest.
And
That's right.
They kicked ass, and you've got all these old school bands like, Minor Threat, Discharge, the UK Subs, Fear, all that stuff that people say is great, but I'm, admittedly
Yeah, I mean, I haven't got into a lot. I haven't got into a lot of that. I will admit, and that's always one of those things where I'm like, I should and I need to, and I look it up, but then something else hits, or I'm at work, or something happens, and I just don't. You know what I mean? But I mean, it's there, and I'm gonna get to it.
But you like Iggy Pop, and the Stooges could somewhat be considered punk, right?
Oh yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people hail them as like
the first,
or one of the pioneers and whatnot.
Them and MC5,
yes,
probably.
Yeah.
Which then led into the Sex Pistols and Ramones.
Yes.
And the Clash, of course, which I know.
The Clash.
You hadn't even brought them up. I know you're.
Man, I mean that is just one thing where I mean, Clash is like they were to me. I mean, I don't know. They were kind of like a gentleman's punk.
Yeah.
They weren't as snotty and sloppy as some of them.
Yeah.
They were more. I don't know. Maybe I'm using this term. I don't know, but it just seemed they're a little bit more avant-garde, shall we say, if I can get a little fancy. but they've just got because they'll do weird shit. They'll do ambient shit, or they'll do poppy shit with xylophones and backup singers. But when it come down to it, the Clash were amazing for their songs and their songwriting. And I mean, London Calling, you just can't ask for anything better. Bank Robber, Daddy Was a Bank Robber. I mean, fuck. It's just, and everyone knows, oh yeah, Rock the Casbah. Well, it goes so much deeper than that, way deeper. Guns of Brixton. I mean, I don't know. I could go on about the Clash. I love that band, till the end of time. And they were gonna get back together, and then Joe Strummer passed away.
Were they really?
Yeah, they were. I read where they were in talks they were talking about maybe doing something.
Damn.
Yep.
Well, this kind of...
You know what the Clash can bring us into.
No, I don't.
They can bring us into the Boston stuff.
Oh, well, yeah, okay.
Because the Clash were so influential on all those guys.
I want to throw one more in before we move to that.
Oh, go right ahead.
Which is another band that was kind of punk, but is a one-off album, which was the Neurotic Outsiders.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Which, of course, I bought because... of
You're
Guns
a
N' Roses.
gigantic Guns N' Roses fan.
Right. And it featured Steve Jones from Sex Pistols, as well as John Taylor from Duran Duran, and then Duff and Matt.
Yeah.
And it's just an album, amazing album, underrated as hell, from the 90s. I think it came out like 96, maybe.
Yeah.
And, it's got Duff singing some songs, Steve Jones singing most of them. I think John Taylor might even sing one. But it's just kind of like that same kind of vibe, like we're going to talk about the Street Dogs, just,
yeah,
that kind of raw rock and roll power.
That's right.
And with that voice that makes it,
Yeah, I need to go back and listen to that. You turned me on to it years and years and years and years ago.
It's on Spotify now.
Yeah.
It wasn't for a long time, but it is now. So.
Sweet. Sweet.
But all right, so Boston.
Yes.
Is the city of the day because Lenny Lashley.
That's right. And St. Patrick's Day.
Right. And so that brings us into those bands, which, of course, is in a later time period than the other stuff we've been talking about.
Yeah, it came out more. Yeah, I think the first. Well, this is Dropkick Murphy's 20th anniversary because they started in '96. So that's pretty much, and a lot of this stuff offshoots from that. So.
But I'd say we've probably been on the Dropkick Murphys thing for maybe 10 years.
Yeah, I'd say. Yeah.
Maybe a little longer, but... Yeah. And Street Dogs probably since the beginning, right?
Yeah, because I never knew... I first saw the Street Dogs when they opened up for Social Distortion.
Oh, okay.
10 years ago or something at Kane's Bar.
That's right.
And they did Bank Robber by the Clash, by the way. I had no idea that Mike McColgan had been in Dropkick Murphys.
Right.
Until he said, hey, there's this band I used to be in called Dropkick Murphys, and we're going to do a song. And they did one of that. And I was like, what the fuck? So I had to go look all that up. But anyways, yeah, I mean.
Yeah, I'd completely forgot they opened there.
Yeah, and so I looked all their stuff up and just in love with their Street Dogs. They renewed, I mean, they gave me that same spirit that, Misfits and Ramones give you.
Yeah.
And like the first time you heard Rancid.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just complete rebellion. It was awesome.
The Rebel song.
That's right.
The thing I love about Street Dogs is it's a lot of the same thing with Rancid, is that no matter what the subject of the song is, it gives you a good feeling.
Yeah.
You know, you feel uplifted somehow, some way.
Yeah.
It's just the style of music, the way they play it. It just always just gives you a good vibe.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, from their first, Savin Hill right on to, what they're doing now. Was it that Noise Split 7 they did with, and just, fucking Fading American Dreams, great. State of Grace, that's an amazing record. I mean, Street Dogs, they're just, and they do these like 2.5 minute songs. They put like 20 of them on a fucking record. It's just awesome. It's great.
And we saw them here in Tulsa in a small club.
Oh, man.
At the Vanguard.
Oh, shit.
Well, back when it was called something else. But
It was called the Marquee.
That was, that's probably been, was that like 2008 or
Yeah,
something?
2008, 2009.
Yeah.
That had to literally be one of the best shows I've ever been to in my whole entire life.
Yeah.
It's like I was Frank the Tank at that show. It's like, yes, everyone knows you had a good fucking time, Frank. And that was me.
Well, it's just another one of those shows there where like there was maybe 150 people.
I don't even think there was that many.
There was a lot of people up front. I remember more than some of the shows I've been to there.
Yeah.
I went to 3 Inches of Blood, and there was.
Well, yeah, I was at that one, but anyways, yeah.
Were you there?
Yeah, me, yeah.
Oh, okay. I thought just me and Tracy was there.
Nope,
Sorry.
I was there.
But yeah, and there was like 65 people there because
Yeah.
I counted.
Yeah.
But with that show, the Street Dogs, it's like, people say this all the time about a lot of bands, but they put on the same show whether they're playing, in front of 40,000 people or in front of 45 people.
Yeah.
And it was just from the get-go. And I remember after the show, we met Mike, and he even pointed you out, right?
Yeah.
He's like, you knew every word, every
Yeah,
song. He basically called you out for being a fanboy, but he was appreciative of it.
Yeah, he was like, what's your name? I was like, Jason. He goes, you knew every fucking word to every song. I'm like, well, yeah, you guys kick fucking ass. And I was a fanboy, but who cares, you know?
Hell yeah.
And, he was a nice guy. It was just great. It was just one of the best, I was drunk off my fucking ass, but I remembered every fucking thing of it. That was just, that was one of the best nights of my life, that show. I'm saying it. I don't care.
Well, what about the other stuff from Boston? Flogging Molly's from Boston?
No, they're from, see, I was about to bring them up. I think they're in this conversation, but they're, Dave King's from Ireland, but they all got their start in L.A.
Oh, they're from, okay.
Yeah,
I
they're
didn't
from
realize
LA.
that. Okay.
Really, and but at the same time, they're really tied into. And that was the next time I saw Street Dogs was when they opened up for Flogging Molly at the Canes Ballroom.
I didn't even realize they opened for them.
Yeah. And then a year or so after that was when we saw them at the Vanguard or whatever.
Okay.
But yeah, Flogging Molly, they're a little bit more. They've got a little bit more acoustic, folksy kind of leanings, but they're still definitely in that kind of Irish, definitely, world, because Dave King's from Ireland, and he definitely looks and sounds like he's from Ireland, and he used to be in Fastway, so there you go.
Say what you will, man.
Say what you will. That was him.
Well, we've got that. Do we need to talk about Dropkick Murphys? Everybody knows and loves them. We love them.
Oh, yeah. I have to say, since this is St. Patrick's Day.
Oh, wow, yeah.
Yeah, there's no other band that you can get into for St. Patrick's Day than Dropkick Murphys. I'm not going to explain it. I'll be here for another hour. Go look it up. Green, Shamrocks, Boston, Irish. They've got a bagpiper, they've got the tin whistle, they've got the banjos. Their music is so fun and it's so passionate, and they've got hooks for days, but it's like, at the same time, it's a raw punk thing. I can't tell you how good this band is, and I got to 2 years in a row, I think 2010 and 2011, I went to Boston for the annual St. Patrick's shows that Dropkick Murphys puts on. And, you know, we saw like, I don't know, 4 nights in a row or something. I mean, it was just epic at the House of Blues in Boston. And the vibe is amazing. Everyone is just in a great mood. Everyone's nice and just, you know, merry and all that kind of stuff. The drinks are flowing, and, you know, they mixed up the set list every night. Hell, one night, Bruce fucking Springsteen came out and did Peg in My Heart with him.
That's unbelievable.
I couldn't fucking believe I was there. I mean, I was kind of back there in the back, but I was fucking there, you know, because it was just so packed. And it's just a great vibe. If you ever get the chance to go to Boston during St. Patrick's Day, you have to go see the Dropkick Murphys. I mean, you have to.
Do all the shows lead up to the final one on St. Patrick's Day?
Yeah,
Or
it's kind of been different in the past.
Okay.
I think last year they did all these shows that week, and then they flew to Ireland like that night so they could play in Ireland on St. Patrick's Day. Or
Wow.
just something crazy like that. But it's usually all around St. Patrick's Day and that kind of thing. And it's just, we even, one year we had like these, there was a night off in between the 3 or 4 shows that we were going to, and we had nothing to do. And so we bought these, like VIP passes to their show. They were taking a break during these shows and driving up to Lowell, Massachusetts and doing a show in the big college arena. And we bought passes to that, and we got to do like a bus thing, and then you get to go to a meet and greet with them. So we got to meet them and all this kind of stuff, and it was a free open bar, and then they drive you back on the bus to Boston. I mean, it was just a spectacle. And this band, they do it right, and they're great to their fans. And I mean, you know, and that leads us to, I think I can say that leads us to this year. The Dropkick Murphys St. Patrick's Day tour is going on, and Darkbuster is opening the tour.
The 20th anniversary tour?
Yes, and it consists of Lenny Lashley, who is in the Street Dogs Gang of One. So, and that's who we have our interview with this week.
Yeah, so let's mention Darkbuster,
Yeah.
which is why he was in Tulsa. Like, he was a part of the Dropkick tour, but he did an off date here in Tulsa.
Yeah, I think they had a night off, because the next night they were in Dallas, so on the way
Right.
they just stopped in Tulsa at the Fur Shop.
And, you know, this Darkbuster, the new album, is really cool. We talked about it a little, I think,
Yeah.
whenever we first,
Yeah.
you know, after we did the interview, maybe that episode. But it's just got a really cool vibe to it, you know, several different things going on, and it's shifted a lot from what they sounded like early on.
Yeah, I think so too.
And I think we even talk about that in the interview, and he talks about that as well. But that obviously probably comes with age, because that was like 15 years ago.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, these guys are a great band that, you know, they aren't known mainstream outside of the New England area, I don't think.
They are now.
Yeah, I mean, thanks to Dropkick Murphys and
Yeah.
and him being in the Street Dogs, I think that's helped a lot. So
Yeah, yeah. And, you know, I think that Darkbuster, new album, No Revolution, I mean, it kind of straddles the line between, I hate to say a pop punk thing, but it's pretty catchy and it's pretty happy sounding, but it also has kind of a rootsy thing going on. And I think it kind of straddles that really well and makes it a really cool record and a really cool vibe.
yeah, and we talked about that, and also he's got the band Lenny Lashley's Gang of One,
That's right.
which is also some cool stuff. And he also does solo stuff where he's just playing acoustic,
Yeah. Yeah.
which hopefully we'll hear something recorded from him in the future on that.
Right.
But he's been in Street Dogs now for 3 years, I think.
I think so, yeah.
And, you know, I mean, I know that when we started this, if you had made a list of bands you would like to
man.
have on the podcast, a member of the Street Dogs would have been on your list.
Oh,
so
yeah,
here
definitely. And, you know, and the thing is, you know, he's in the Street Dogs, and that's great, and we get into that a little bit, but I was really happy that we, focused on him and Darkbuster, because I thought the new album is just really cool. And so it was really cool to talk to him about it. And he was a super nice guy. So
Yeah, definitely. And one thing I wanted to mention, since you mentioned it, we didn't talk about pop punk and how much it pisses me off. But we probably don't
that's
need
the thing,
to.
and I hate to say that it was pop punk, because to me that's not a bad thing.
No, I'm not talking about that at all.
Maybe that's not
about
the best way I should have described it. It seemed really, it just had a kind of a modern bounce with a kind of a every now and then a rootsy thing going on. I don't know. I'm a dick. I don't know what I'm talking about.
No, I'm not talking about you saying that. I'm just talking about in general. Whenever I hear a Simple Plan song or a Blink-182 song or something, I'm like, why is the word punk attached to this? I don't know.
Hey, at least you didn't have to see Simple Plan in concert.
So you're saying that you did on this podcast, you're admitting it?
Well, yeah. You know the story behind that.
I know.
I took my niece to see Good Charlotte and Simple Plan because her parents wouldn't, and I wanted to take her to, I'm a good person, take her to her first concert, and she loved it. I didn't, but that's not what it was about.
Hey, I went to a dubstep concert for Tracy's kids, so there you go.
Yeah, I know. Well, you're a stronger man than me.
No, I think we're even.
I don't
Good
know.
Charlotte.
I think you win on that one.
I'd take dubstep over Good Charlotte, just so you know.
Maybe. It's terrible that a laptop can sound better than Good Charlotte, but
Hopefully,
it could be true.
Hopefully Lenny Lashley's not a Good Charlotte fan. He's not going to tell anybody about this interview, right?
Who knows? We're getting off on a tangent. We've got to rein it back in, Trent.
Well, do we want to just jump into the interview now?
Yeah, let's get right into it.
All right, thank you guys for the opportunity.
No problem.
We appreciate you doing it.
Yeah. Have you played Tulsa before?
She's not for a number of years.
Yeah.
The last time the Darkbuster was in Tulsa, we did it once. It had to be 15 years ago. It was a tornado warning. Drove everybody out of the club and night me a drive out of here. That's all I really remember about it. And crawling up under a highway underpass at one point. We listened to local radio, and that was before the days of cell phones and weather reports that you could just check on your phone, So we were listening to AM radio or something. They said, this county, and we drove right through that county. So I pulled a van over and got everybody up under a highway underpass for 45 minutes until it seemed like it blew over. And
Yeah, that's Oklahoma for you. For sure.
Well, you guys are what? Like 6 or 7 shows into this Dropkick Murphy tour?
Today will be 8 for us, I think, or 9 for us, because we did one in Buffalo before we took off too. But with the Dropkicks, I think last night was 7 with them.
Okay. Like how's that going so far?
Been awesome. We're really lucky. They do all the hard work. They put the people in the rooms. All we have to do is show up and try and play good. You know what I mean? It's kind of a different way of touring for most bands. So no complaints. Those guys are so great to us. You know what I mean? So anything we need, really, they're like a big father, a big brother or a father or something. Along. If you need something, they're there to coach you along and help you. So.
Yeah, and they've kind of got a built-in audience,
Well, now they've been doing it for so long. It really is literally like Groundhog's Day for them in a lot of places. It's like St. Patrick's Day, 24/7.
Yeah. Well, have you, I assume, being part of the Boston scene, have you known them since back in the 90s?
Well, I've known them since early 90s, since '96, the inception of the band, pretty much. I didn't really know them as well as I did, and I used to follow them around. Me and Mike, the original bass player, and Eric, the original guys in Darkbuster, so that was our thing. We wanted to go out and learn from the bands that were doing well in town. So those guys were the ones that we followed to all the gigs that they had. The Rat, and Ken was just real ambitious. He seemed like he was always getting bigger and better gigs, and kind of was always trying to study the inner works of that. It was like there was a couple other bands, Amazing Royal Crowns in town that we followed a lot of, and consequently they were like the same management company worked with both of those bands eventually. But yeah, I've known them. Like Mike and Rick, the original guitar player in the Dropkicks, were the guys like '97 when they got signed to Hellcat. That was I remember being there at that record release show they did there. You know.
Well, so how have obviously, like you said, playing to packed houses with their crowd. Like when you get out of the Northeast area, how has the reaction been for Darkbuster?
I mean, everything has been really positive. You know, there's a lot of people that have never seen the band before, and then there's like, we were in St. Louis the other night, and there were people that were 10 years or 12 years ago when we were coming through in a van by ourselves, were there going like, hey, you know, well, basically I'm the only original member in the band, so, but all the reaction as far as the 30 minutes that we have to kind of go out and prove it has been really, really positive. It's not like I've read like bands going out and opening for Motorhead in the first 4 rows, just turning their back on bands, and everybody's been really, really receptive. Luckily, people are coming out early, so that's been really good.
You know, and that's kind of the thing that you guys, like you were saying, some people hadn't seen you, and you know, just kind of give us like a kind of a rundown, because like Wikipedia says some stuff, and you don't ever know if Wikipedia is right or not.
Yeah, so we started out like 20 years ago, about when the Dropkicks did, in 96 or 97, as a 3-piece. Some younger kids than me. I just turned 51. They were 10 or better years younger than me, but we were all playing in different bands in a club, Derringer's in Brockton. And we went along for, I don't know, about 4 or 5 years with that lineup. We won like a local radio thing in BCN Rumble in 2000. Switched a little lineup change to one drummer. The one original guy, the drummer, Eric, left. We got a buddy of ours, Danny, to play, and added a guitar player. This guy, Paul Delano, that was in the band Mung. Real good band out of Boston. And then we did that lineup for, I don't know, had to be another 5 or 6 years. I had an industrial accident with my finger, lost a bit of my finger. We pulled on another guitar player, this girl, Amy Griffin, who played in the band Raging Teens. She joined. The old drummer, Eric, came back. That's when we did that original West Coast run with the Dropkicks. That must have been 2005 or something. Then we everything built up to a tour that we had in Europe, first tour of Europe. I had a significant mental breakdown in Europe, and we came back, and basically that was the band kind of dissolved at that point. You know, I wasn't really in any kind of mental state to do anything for almost 2 years. So we did one reunion show, the original lineup with the Boss Tones, I think, after that, one of the Throwdown shows, and then it just basically, it never really came up. So the opportunity to kind of move on and do this developed in a tour that I was out in Europe with the Street Dogs, and there's a promoter over there at MAD. We were covering one song that I had written, Skinhead, in the Street Dogs set, and they're getting really tremendous reaction from people over there. And that's kind of what brought the idea into my head, to kind of go back and dive into it a little bit more, finish an album that we had half in the can, and dump some money into that and get it up and going. And I hate living something like an uncompleted thing, so. Well, that's pretty much the whole history, I guess, up to now. And got some players on board from various bands. There's Ruben Lipkin from the Chosen Ones in Buffalo. Kid Justin Bavona from the Interrupters is playing keyboards now. Sax, this guy Tom Cortuli, who played with us, the original lineup, for a bit. Pete, who plays with me in the Street Dogs, Pete Sosa. And this guy Halston that Pete knows from Roger Murray and the Disasters, played with Roger. So it's kind of like an all-star lineup when I think of it now, and I wonder why the band is sounding as good as it does.
Yeah, the Interrupters are great. I fucking love that album.
Hard-working band, and they're really, Justin's just for a kid that's as young as he is, to get it. I was talking a lot the other night, like, geez, I wish I had a grasp on it at the age that he does, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, No Revolution's great. I mean, it's got this, folky stuff, but punky stuff, and I mean, it's just, you guys hit it out of the park with like kind of the diversity, but also keeping it kind of a punk thing. It's just an awesome album.
Well, thank you, man.
Yeah, it was great. Yeah, gotta say.
I appreciate that.
Because there's a noticeable sound shift from the first album to that? So it's
Yeah,
kind
I
of
mean,
like, is that just getting older where you're incorporating this stuff?
You know, I think it's just like the first album, we really didn't know what we were doing. Like most bands, didn't have any clue what we were doing, and we went in. I'm happy with the way the album came out, but by the time a few years had passed and we got to go and do the Weakness thing, we kind of knew a little bit, some more people in better studios and had a little bit more time to make a better record. You know what I mean? Everything was funded out of our own pockets, but I mean, I think stylistically we kind of grew as songwriters like everybody does. I think as you get into it, it's such the natural progression of a band, I think, you know what I mean? You know, stylistically we were always, even from the very first album, it's hard to categorize a band. We were doing kind of horn ska stuff, some hardcore stuff, some real tongue-in-cheek street punk kind of stuff. So we really wrote for our own entertainment, you know what I mean? What made us feel happy about what we were playing, and then if people liked it, you know, all the power to it, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I noticed you do some solo unplugged stuff.
Yeah, I've been doing stuff on under Lenny Lashley's Gang of One now. That I got a full-length record, too, that I did that it's called Illuminator, that was out on Pirates Press. That's kind of, it's a full band thing, but the solo thing just developed. A lot of people were doing it. I've been playing, since that breakdown in Europe, I hadn't been playing music for a little while, and that's how I got back into playing, getting the confidence to play just me and the acoustic guitar, kind of bearing my soul, and it just kind of was a good way to kind of reconnect with the music. So, you know, plus it's easier to get around in a Honda Accord with an acoustic guitar than it is in a 15 Passy with a trailer full of gear and all of that, you know. Much more cost effective, you know.
Were you playing Gang of One stuff only, or are you playing Darkbuster as well?
No, that, when I go out and do that, there was a band I was in, the Piss Poor Boys, too, that was kind of like a country western type of thing. So I try and do a cross-section of everything that I can do from that, you know what I mean? Some things just don't translate to the acoustic guitar, so I won't do them, but even that, there's no golden rule to that, because sometimes I wait for a little while and gestate a different version of a song that I had written only for electric, or like a full band will come up, and I'm always kind of trying to push the barriers of that, too, a little bit, you know? If a spirit moves me and it seems like it's the direction to head in, then I'll go that way with it, you know?
Yeah, just let it take you there.
I mean, that's the thing. It's like a muse. I really look at it like a muse. If something brings me along, and it's a vibe is working, usually I can tell if it's working or if it isn't working. If it seems like it's forced, then I just let it go and try a different song, you know?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I was just kind of curious if you played any of the more punk stuff acoustically, or is that the stuff that you mean doesn't translate?
Well, I mean, this is just some stuff that does and some stuff that doesn't. Like, I haven't worked out an acoustic version of like pub. On that first record, there's not a ton of stuff that I do on the acoustic guitar, because it was basically just 3-chord punk, you know what I mean?
Right.
Cheap Wine and Cigarettes, I do a little version of that I've been doing like acoustically, because it works. Kind of, I do like a sadder, slower version of it, which now in hindsight I think probably I was writing a sad love song anyway from the get-go, you know, a sad unrequited love song. I just didn't know how to express myself on an acoustic guitar at that point, you know, so that one seems natural, like it was supposed to be played the way I played on the acoustic guitar the more and more I play it, you know.
Do you have any thoughts of recording that stuff? Recording completely stripped down?
There's been some talk of that with Skippy at Pirates Press, the guy that's been gracious, the label that's been gracious enough to help me out and put some stuff out. And, yeah, he's been talking about he even at one point was talking to me about maybe just doing a live version. I kind of like the idea of maybe just doing it in a studio but stripped down with a few players. Tim in the Dropkicks was nice enough to do some work on a solo record that I did, a 7-inch Europe release, and just get 3 players and just kind of do it like that singer-songwriter series kind of vibe, you know what I mean? So it's real laid back and just do a bunch of takes and find the best takes of it, you know? I don't know how cost-effective it'd be, and then you got to get people's schedules, but I would really like to do something like that, I think, yeah.
Well, does Street Dogs have anything coming in the future besides just live shows, or
Well, that's the idea, is to get in. Now we're actually in pre-production trying to get some stuff, stuff, sift through the library of material that I have, and John's got a bunch of stuff too, and get together and figure out where we're going to sit down and record the stuff, you know, and find the time to do it. we're hoping, I think, to get some of that stuff knocked out before we go to Europe in August. So.
Okay. Are you looking to do a full album, or is it going to be EPs like the last?
No, I think the plan.
releases?
I think the plan with the Street Dogs is to get a full. We're going to record another full length. Is the plan, as far as I know. Yeah.
Cool. And you guys got some shows with Rancid coming up?
We got the one for sure with Rancid, and the other one is so the 17th, St. Patty's Day, we do the one show in Fort Lauderdale with Rancid, and then the 18th we're on that Flogging Molly cruise. So that's 18th, 19th, 20th, something like that. It's like a 3-day cruise out of Miami.
Yeah.
So Flogging Molly, it's the Tosses from Chicago, Nate's band, Nate from Flogging Molly's band, the Bunny Gang, is a shit. I can't even remember how many bands are on that thing. So,
those cruises are a big thing now. Have you done one of those before?
I've never been on a cruise ship before,
Yeah.
so I've been practicing that man overboard. Like I just practice that a lot, like
Yeah, taking nausea medicine stuff. That's what I'd have to do.
yeah, right.
You know. Right on.
I mean, the downside is, like, I figure no way there's no way to run. You're trapped on a boat for, like, what do you do?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, when you're writing music, do you just write to write, or do you specifically think, since all these projects are a little bit different from each other, do you specifically write for something?
I never have done that. I think, like, I always think of it like the guys that were my heroes writing songs when I was a kid. Like, I listened to a lot. I kind of fell into the punk rock stuff. I listened to my stuff out of my mother's record collection a lot, and I really kind of identified with hooks. So I write whatever seems to kind of be poignant to me at the time. A lot, most recently it's been kind of acoustic stuff, mostly sad kind of stuff along that line. But it's autobiographical kind of, you know what I mean? I write what I feel. Sometimes I'm feeling a little aggro. The aggro stuff comes out. I got like a bank of stuff that if it doesn't seem like it's going to work, I'll go back and revisit, And so that's the one side is it's very, very easy to just put down little bits of ideas. The hard part, like for the Street Dogs thing coming up, is sifting through all those ideas and figuring out what's good and what's bad and what would go here, what would go there,
What kind of stuff do you listen to now?
Now I'm across the board. Like I really listen. Like the stuff in my iTunes collection is like goes from really like from roots reggae, all the Trojan stuff. All the classic, like classic rock stuff that I used to listen to as kids, like Beatles and Bad Company and all of that stuff. Mind you, I'm 51, so I grew up in kind of a different era than most, And then the straight up punk rock, I've been listening to a lot of like Old From Casuals, Laz's band is really, that one's, we're actually coming out to that, to like a Laz song with the Dropkick tour. I really love and respect Laz and Tim as songwriters always, so it's like, that's always something that I say, wow, maybe someday I'll write songs as good as they do, But yeah, like I try and listen to a variety of stuff. I don't want to be pigeonholed in that either, Like I always say, like if you were a great painter, would you just look at Picasso, or you'd look at some Renoir, you'd look at some Van Gogh, you'd look at everybody around you that paints, and try and take what you can and have your own identity,
Yeah. I saw, was it sometime in December, they declared Street Dogs Day in Boston?
Oh, yeah, Marty Walsh, the mayor and Marty Walsh did. Yeah, we did that 3-day run over there in end of December.
How did that just come about, coincide with
your
the
guess
dates,
is as
or?
good as mine. I really thought it was a prank. I didn't even think it was real until I saw there was actually like a leather-bound, like a official-looking embossed thing that they sent, with a stamp in it, and I have no idea how it came about. Thus far, it hasn't worked into any free parking tickets or any of that shit. So
still got to pay all those.
Yeah, right.
So does that mean you got to play Boston that day every year? I guess.
Jeez, I hope so. I hope so. I hope it involves a free lunch too or something.
I think that wraps it up.
Cool.
Well, right on, you guys. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Yeah, we appreciate the time.
Appreciate you guys sticking around for the show.
I think so, yeah.
Oh, cool.
There you go, Lenny Lashley. Do yourself a favor, check out No Revolution from Darkbuster. Of course, Street Dogs. And do yourself another favor, check out Lenny Lashley's Gang of One.
Yes.
Follow all this stuff on Facebook, and I know Lenny Lashley's Gang of One's on Reverb Nation. Darkbuster, of course. Buy it at your local record store.
Yeah, it's a great record.
Get on iTunes, Spotify, whatever it is you do, whatever you need to do to get that in your ears. We'd like to thank Christian from Pirate Press for setting this up for us, Mick for helping us out, which was his tour manager, and of course Lenny Lashley.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, great guy, awesome interview. So, we're happy to bring it to you guys.
Yeah, it's always cool to meet someone whose music you love and they're a cool person.
Yeah, they're awesome, yeah.
And he's definitely a cool person. And another thing I wanted to mention was every Sunday morning, Jason Wood here post on our Instagram at The Thunder Underground, hashtag Sunday Morning Punk Rock.
That's right.
And basically just posts a picture of a band or an album or something from the punk rock world and just says, hey, check this out.
That's right. So, check that out and get into it and, take our advice.
Yeah. So follow us on Instagram if you're on there, The Thunder Underground. You can also follow us on Facebook at The Thunder Underground, Periscope, Thunder Underground. Follow us on Twitter, THNDRUNDR Ground. And our website is thethunderunderground.com. All this stuff's housed on there. All our previous episodes are on soundcloud.com/thunder-underground. 48 previous episodes for you to check out.
Yeah, that's right. All kinds of stuff. Runs the gamut.
Yeah. We specialized or focused in on punk this episode, but, we're all over the place, whether it be hard rock, heavy metal, glam rock, punk rock. It's all good. We love it all.
That's right. We do not discriminate.
All right. Well, we got anything else we want to talk about punk-wise before we bounce out? Any other band you want to throw a shout out to? Actually, I do.
Oh, go ahead.
There's a band called, I keep forgetting their name.
Well, while you're doing that, I've got one.
Okay.
I mentioned them briefly earlier, the Interrupters.
There you go.
Go check them out.
I think you mentioned them in that interview.
Yeah, I did, because they're great. They've got a cool punk kind of a ska thing. Female singer sings her ass off, and it's a mean record.
My friend Alan, who listens to all our podcasts.
That's right.
Shout out to him.
Definitely.
He's big into punk, and he told me to check out this band called Left Alone.
Okay.
Have you heard of them?
I have not.
And they have this real Rancid vibe to them. Like you could tell they're definitely fans of Rancid probably.
Yeah.
But it doesn't sound like a cheap imitation. It
Really?
just sounds like good, and they've got a few albums now, 2 or 3, I think at least.
Well, I've got to check them out.
So it's a good newer band to check out.
Cool.
Yeah. All right, well, until next time.
Well, the next one's 50.
Oh, yeah.
It's going to be a big one, I think.
Let's
I hope.
hope.
Well, we're not saying anything yet, but the next one's 50, so...
The silver anniversary. We might get James Hetfield on the phone.
Probably not, but, wishful thinking, Trent.
All right. Well, yeah, tune in next week for episode number 50 of the Thunder Underground podcast.
Thunder Underground, y'all.